Don McKellar is an actor, writer, and director, and tonight we'll talk to him about being all three on his classic film, Last Night. Welcome, Don. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here. I'm so glad it's a classic.
It's a classic. It's officially a classic. And it really, it really holds up. I had so much fun watching it again.
Oh, good.
So in 1989, you started working. You were a writer, you're an actor, but it wasn't really until this film that you decided to step behind the camera as a director. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, even before that, I'd been acting. I'd had a theater company, a sort of experimental theater company. I'd done a fair bit, and then I founded my own called the Augusta Company. And in that company, we acted, and there were three of us, we all acted and wrote and directed. So I had been doing that a bit. I just hadn't been doing it in film. Mm-hmm. I'd written films and I'd acted in films. And then this French company, Egoyan, through Arte, asked me, well, that's not true. Even before that, I'd done a short film. Before that, I had gone to the film center. That's really what it was. Because I thought I was working in film, but I wasn't able to I wanted to do more like I had in theater to encompass all my stuff. So I went to the film center in the directing program. So I'd be able to direct. And I directed a short film, which was immediately before this, which was called Blue, starred also David Cronenberg and Tracy Wright. And that got some attention. And then in France, it was written up in the Cahiers de Cinema and things like that. So the French producers asked me to do a longer version because this film, this is the longest, this is your first question, and it's going on and on for 10 minutes. It's
the magic of television.
So they were doing a series called 2000 Vous Par. It was about the turning of the millennium. And they were commissioning 10 films from 10 countries about the turning of the millennium. And they asked me to represent Canada. And they were supposed to be young filmmakers, you know, visions of the coming millennium or something like that. So based on my short film, they asked me to direct a feature. And actually, they even suggested that I play a lead, because at that time I was more known as an actor, certainly than as a director. So
it's such an interesting choice for the millennium. I mean, other apocalyptic movies came out in the same year.
We'll have to do that again.
Yeah.
Just go back and do it again.
The director is with me, everyone.
Okay, take care.
A couple of other apocalyptic movies came out that year. Yours is the most gentle apocalypse. What were you thinking when you wrote this? I mean, is there a reason that you wanted to choose this approach?
I mean, I hadn't, of course, seen the apocalyptic films that came out that year. They were probably being made at the same time as mine, but I was responding in a way to I can't remember. I always forget which is which. Was Armageddon or Independence Day? One of those had already come out. That kind of movie.
Right.
The kind of movie where the world is threatened by some massive disaster, and then basically American saves it.
Or one American.
Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Or someone like that is sent into space, and they solve it. And I had always thought that in Canada, we just wouldn't have that option. I don't know anyone with spaceships, or there is no Canadian Bruce Willis. And so we would just have to deal with it. I mean...
You didn't see yourself as the Canadian Bruce Willis? You didn't think you could step in there?
No, and if I was, I would be pretty inept. So that would be sad for the country and the world. So I thought the vast majority of the world would have to deal with it. And in fact, the vast majority of Americans would have to deal with it and would have no control. And that to me is a much bigger issue. It seems to me if you are able to stop the end of the world, then you certainly should. You know, like that. You know, then that's your obligation to go out there and stop it. But if you don't have any nuclear warheads or access to, you know, scientists or those hackers who can always solve things.
NASA.
Yeah, NASA. Then you have to deal with it. And then, of course, it's a question of, it becomes a bigger existential kind of metaphor for dealing with death and life. And So that was my particular Canadian take, because like I said, I was asked to represent Canada.
Right.
And so I thought, it did make me think I better make something very Canadian, so very close to home, shoot it at home, with a Canadian type of protagonist. And so that was in the back of my head a bit. And I thought of it as being sort of a satire of the Canadian protagonist, but also a validation.
So how are you defining Canadian there? Tell me, elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I think I just mean historically the kind of protagonist we have, which is usually more authorial or contemplative or removed even, or forced to be removed or put upon. Maybe it's more of a literary protagonist than a cinematic one, although
Right.
there's lots of cinematic examples too.
We have these reputation as being observers.
Observers,
right, yeah.
You know, we're a big country next to America, just sort of watching it
Yeah.
with some distance,
Right.
with some critical distance. So I guess that's what I meant as a protagonist, but also as a Canadian protagonist. Also, I was really literally drawing on the people I knew and my family and myself, because it was my first film and I was asked to represent Canada. I said, well, I better make it personal.
And it's also funny.
It's funny. That's another Canadian aspect. I always thought those films that I was sort of referring to, the big American films, are notable for their earnestness and the sort of ludicrous earnestness. And also the sort of callousness. I always say, I remember in one of those films, I can't remember which, they said in some off-screen, well, it wasn't off-screen, I think it was some news broadcaster said, and Western Canada is destroyed. They just mentioned it in passing, and I thought, oh, well, that's
France is
bad.
gone.
And they did say France is gone too, and France is gone. There's the Eiffel Tower, and you think, oh, well, actually, France, for whatever you say, it's sad if we lose them all.
Yeah, we really should.
And then at the end, they celebrated as if it's not by far the worst disaster ever to befall humanity.
But Bruce Willis's
but at
family
least
got
it's
out.
saved, yes.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. I look back on it now, and the cast is so amazing. David
Yes.
Cronenberg, Sarah Polley, Callum Keith Rennie, Sandra Oh.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's sort of like a class of '96 or something, '98?
I guess it is. Many of them were people I'd worked with, but I will say that I had no problem casting it. I didn't even have a moment's. Everyone I asked for said yes.
Did you write with these particular people in mind?
I wrote with Sandra, not mine for sure. I'd met her a little bit. I knew her a little bit socially. I'd seen her. I'd met her at a film festival in Taiwan, actually, and we had a good time together. And I always thought she was a great dramatic actress. At the time, she was doing an American comedy series, Arliss, and I thought, she's not well used. She can do so much more. Like she's really has an amazing range. She has humor, but also she's really dramatic chops. So yeah, I did sort of think of her, and I'd worked with David and Tracy before. I worked with David Cronenberg. I remember in my first short film, Blue, I'd written a part, and I said, well, I remember my producer, who was Bruce McDonald, said, who do you think would be good for that part? Who was this porno addict who worked in a carpet factory? And I said, well, it should be someone, very reserved, with that Canadian waspy reserve, but who has a sort of depth, there's something strange going on behind. Someone like David Cronenberg. And he said, well, why don't you ask him? And I said, oh, okay. And he agreed. But he represents this type to me of this sort of slightly detached, intelligent observer. So he had worked with him. Callum, had I worked with in Twitch City? Yes, I'm terrible with, but I knew him from Hardcore Logo, and I loved him there. Geneviève Bugeaud, I definitely wrote with Geneviève Bugeaud in mind. She was definitely my platonic ideal of a French teacher. She was my dream, my sort of, the French teacher when I grew up that I always wanted to have. She was I always had a sort of crush on her. And there was always, French teachers always had a slightly, in my age anyway, slightly flirtatious outside appeal. So
Yes, you're getting lost in the reverie of your French teacher, thinking of your French teacher even now.
I'm going through all my French teachers thinking about it. But Geneviève Bugeaud was
She's the archetypal French
yeah, because
teacher.
I really did have a bit of a crush on her when I was growing up. And then there was a period when I wasn't sure she could do it, but then she agreed, and I was very excited because there was really no alternative.
Yeah, she's spectacular in the movie. So you've mentioned Cronenberg, Adam
that?
Egoyan, Bruce McDonald.
Yes.
These are all people, were they mentors to you? Did you learn stuff from them?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I think of them as peers, so I'm sort of giving them, calling them mentors is a bit hard for me to do. But yes, of course, where I learned about directing was definitely from the directors I'd worked with at the time, with Bruce McDonald and Patricia Rozema, Adam Egoyan, certainly. That I hadn't really gone to film school. I'd done a year at the Canadian Film Centre, but they didn't really. But definitely. And those directors all are very have a lot of very different way of working, very different attitudes. So it was really interesting to see, that works for him, that doesn't work for him. He's good at this. Bruce is great at creating a team and creating this energy. Adam is very good at, precise, psychologically loaded.
And what about you? How do you like to work?
Well, maybe because of that, I think that I'm very pragmatic when it comes to directing. I feel like I adapt to the actor's needs. And I remember even in last night, I learned that some actors, Sandra, she had a background in theater. She really loved to rehearse. We rehearsed a lot, just the two of us. She and I at my apartment and things. I remember we went through it a lot. With Geneviève Bugeaud, though, she said, I don't want to rehearse. I want to come to the set. I don't want to meet the guy playing Craig, Callum Rennie. I want it to be that moment on screen, to be preserved on screen, and I want that spontaneity. And I remember telling Callum that, and he said, well, what am I supposed to do? We're on the set together. Do I walk around with a bag over my head until she said, and I said, well, no, just, keep your distance and then play out the scene. And so that's a very different method. A lot of actors do that. So so I always feel that whatever the if you cast good actors, and I had great actors in that movie, it's usually foolish to fight their experience and their technique.
You also had Toronto as a character in that movie.
Yes,
did you have to convince anyone of that, or was that always the plan?
Well, no, that was the great thing about being commissioned as a film about Canada. I really wanted it to be in Canada. And I, in fact, went out of my way to put some iconic Canadian Torontonian things in it. Like the streetcars, for instance. I featured Toronto streetcars, which I thought of as being very iconic Toronto image. Although it's on the poster in France, and they went, oh, we can't have this. And I said, why not? And they said, we want it to look like North America, and this looks like Poland. but so I don't know.
Note to Toronto Streetcar Company. Yeah.
But Toronto is a hard city to shoot in a way because you have to. It doesn't have an immediate look that's identifiable to the outside or even to Torontonians.
Well, it certainly didn't then, I think. Maybe
it didn't.
Maybe it does now.
I mean, maybe the residential areas, the homes are quite distinctive, but the streets, it's hard to nail down. So I really had to choose the parts of Toronto and create a distinctive look within Toronto. I chose all these mid-century buildings, which I thought, these sort of modernist buildings that I thought would give an extra poignancy to the fact that the world was going to end, and that they're sort of optimistic buildings. And so we shot out a lot in Weston and places that you wouldn't normally shoot in Toronto. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you've been able to craft a career that includes theater and television and film, that you're acting, that you're directing, do you feel like you've pulled off something singular? I mean, do you have a sense?
Well, do I feel like I've pulled something off?
No. I mean, do you feel like you have a sense
I'm going to
that
tell
you
that
work
to the people on television.
It seems to me that you work on your own terms. Does it feel like that to you?
Yes. Well, I mean, the thing is, working in Canada, I mean, I have this discussion all the time with young people. If you're going to do it, then you better do it in your own terms. I mean, if you want to just make money, then you should go to the States, because you're not going to do that here. What you do have here to compensate for that is control and the possibility to work with like-minded people and create a vision together that is distinctive. So, I mean, that's how I started working, and how I wanted to continue work. So in fact, I feel it's a responsibility here, Canadians. If you are working in Canada, you better do something. You better take the reins and make something unique.
It seems to me like the ensemble thing is also very important to you, that you like, as you say, being with like-minded people and making something together.
Yes, I mean, I think the ensemble thing is, first of all, it's one of the joys of movie making. It can be a curse if you're a controlling person, but it's a cliche, but it's true that it really is a group thing. There's absolutely I suppose there's a way to make a movie by yourself now that cell phones, you can...
Just a whole selfie movie.
Selfie the movie. But I'm surprised that hasn't happened, in fact. But yeah, it's also, I think, very, very deep in the Canadian tradition. I think, for whatever reason, the need to band together in order to survive, whatever you might, the roots of it all are. It's very deep in Canadian art and theater and cinema. I think that idea of collectivity and sharing ideas, and to me, that's really the most fun part about art making, actually, are those collaborations when you don't know who did what and you figured it out together. And,
So how do you feel about the auteur? Like, it seems...
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
It's everyone's idea, but it's my film.
But it's your film.
No, I mean, I think it's grotesque sort of when a film by. I always think that that's an ugly credit. But, I mean, the auteur, it is part of the job of the director to create something distinctive and to choose among the voices and to inspire. If you were working with me, to contribute in a way that conforms to a unified vision.
Right.
So yes, I mean, I think the auteur theory is valid. And as you know, I write, direct, and act. So to me, all the disciplines are muddled together, and I think that's a good thing.
What I want to know, you mentioned this a little bit earlier about advice for a young person just starting out. Do you have specific advice that you would give them?
Well, I mean, right now I always say, there's a famous Godard quote when he was asked by students what they should do, and he said, steal a camera. And I always think, yeah, that's in a time when you had to steal a camera in order to make a movie. Now everyone has cameras and phones. The technology is much cheaper and more available, so I feel that you should make a movie. My advice is always make a movie. Make a movie. And if it's good, you may be able to make another one, a bigger one. That's my main advice. Not necessarily schooling, not that that's bad necessarily. But see a lot of movies, I think. Excuse me, I have to...
That's okay. Take a sip and then I'll ask you.
Pause.
That's why it's great it's not live today.
No, I mean, I think that's the main thing. I feel like a lot of attention is going to be on my ankles.
On your ankles?
Yeah, I noticed that they're bare, and I just saw a glimpse of them over there. And
Now all I can think about is my ankles.
maybe I'll. Okay.
So I'm just
Don't
going to
use
ask
the
you.
long wide shot too much.
I'm just going to ask you a
But just
couple more.
include that moment with me going, oh, my ankles are a bit bare.
He was fine until he caught sight of his
I've
ankles.
turned off the cameras.
I feel like you were ahead of your time
Yes,
in terms
yes,
of that.
I agree. Oh, what?
No,
What?
yes,
Sorry.
in terms of that ensemble thing, like the Duplass brothers and all of these guys, the Mumblecore guys, they're all in each other's projects and working on each other's thing.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like that you have been doing that for a long time.
Yes, I mean, I do think that that's true. I don't think that I initiated. I think that was what is sort of happening. This thing, this sort of Canadian new wave thing that came out of Toronto, the Toronto New Wave. It was a very welcoming community. In fact, many back in the 90s, foreign directors would come to the festival and go, wow, you guys all hang out together? In my country, we just stab each other in the back. And I just thought, we learned early on that I think helping each other and supporting each other was to everyone's advantage. That there was no competitive gain in knocking down Guy Madden or something
Right,
like that.
right,
He's
right.
doing his own thing, it's completely his own thing, and why wouldn't I support that? I think that's generally the case. And we worked together because it was a small community, and there wasn't much of an industry when I started. I mean, the idea of selling out was kind of absurd. No one it hadn't really occurred to people. I suppose there was still television and things like that, but
So what's next? What have you got on your plate?
I'm working on a movie now. I'm shooting it in the fall. I can't really talk about it much now,
Okay.
unfortunately. I'm
All
sorry,
right.
because it hasn't been officially announced.
Okay,
But,
official Don McKellar
I'm working
Untitled
still.
project.
And I'm writing some other things, and I've got a TV series, and
Oh, great. Oh, good. I'm so glad. All right, I'm going to ask you these, what we do with everybody. We ask these rapid fire questions. Short questions, short answers.
all right.
And just whatever is off the top of your head.
Okay.
Okay. What makes you insecure?
I just think a long pause is the right answer for that.
The long
What
pause
makes
it
me
is.
insecure? I have no insecurities that I can think of.
Wow. Congratulations.
Well, lots of. I mean, you know, I have fears like any director. The other night, this is not a short answer. but
Okay.
Just 2 nights ago, I had this long dream where I was meeting the Prime Minister, and it was nice. It was going really well, and then people around me started giving the nod, and I realized I was supposed to be directing him something, and I didn't know what he was supposed to be doing, and it wasn't just a meeting. I was actually supposed to be directing him, and I was like, so do you know the lines? And it was a bit of a director's nightmare. So
Yeah.
I guess that fear of
Being unprepared.
unprepared is always.
Unprepared. It sounds very much like those dreams about high school.
I
where you
mean,
have
it's
to
a
take the
classic, right?
exam.
But it
Yeah.
was just funny that the dream veered off in another direction.
Nice casting, though. The
Yeah,
Prime
it was
Minister.
interesting.
That's
right?
not bad.
Someone should.
What do you do on your day off?
I have a bath often. I do cryptic crossword puzzles.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my little.
Do you have any
relaxation
guilty
thing.
pleasures?
Probably the last two.
The bath.
I overdo the cryptic crossword puzzle.
Do you do the cryptic crossword in the bath?
Often, yes.
Okay.
Usually, if I can. Yeah, that's it, I think. I don't have any, no. I'm not guilty of anything that I watch or listen to.
Okay. Do you have any recurring dreams?
The Trudeau dream has never come back yet. Well, you know, I used to have, it's funny, this is off topic, but one of the inspirations for last night were these recurring dreams I had as a child. I used to have these dreams about the end of the world.
Huh?
And around the time when I was growing up, there was a lot of talk about the end of the
Yes,
world.
duck
It was
and
always,
cover.
and I remember in school, the teacher saying, how do we think the world is going to end? Will it be by pollution, by overpopulation, by race war or by, no, they wouldn't say race war, but nuclear explosion. And that was actually a discussion in school and things like that. And it was always the nuclear clock ticking down. And so I had these dreams of the world ending that got so bad that I was afraid to fall asleep. And one time I had this dream, and I woke up and I thought it was all real. And I called my parents and I was screaming, and they came in and I said, the world is going to end and I have to stop it. And it was like, all right, dear, what are you going to do? And we have to do these things. And they sort of talked me out of it. But I still remember the terrified look on their faces as they thought, oh, we've raised an insane. So that was a recurring dream.
You were just a budding Bruce Willis thinking that you had to fix it.
I know.
If you weren't,
I grew out of that.
if you weren't a filmmaker, what do you think you'd be?
Oh, well, it's, I'm also a writer and an actor, so I guess I would fall back on one of those.
Okay, so still in the biz.
I think so, or what else? I don't know. Maybe I'd set cryptic crosswords.
Oh, to be the puzzle designer.
That's a great profession.
That would be a good profession. What's the last film you saw that really blew your mind? To be honest, I just watched this early Ruben Mamoulian film called Applause. It's complicated why I watched it, but I thought it was one of his first sound pictures, and it had such crazy sound design that it was really inspirational. I know that's an unusual response, but I just watched it 2 nights ago, and I thought it was amazing. Wow.
It had some amazing sequences.
So we're going to show a scene, and you're going to talk us through it, okay?
All right.
Okay, fantastic.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wheeler. I'm calling from the gas company. I hope you're doing well and spending these final hours in peace with your loved ones.
Message received at 5:53 p.m.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wheeler. I'm calling from the gas company. I hope you're doing well and spending these final hours in peace with your loved ones.
He sounds
Rest assured
like
that we will make every effort to keep the gas flowing right
a nice
till the end.
person. Memory is full. You can tell from his voice.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. I'm sure that whatever happened, I'm sure that he tried to reach you. He's obviously conscientious. I mean, the machine was full, right? So I'm sure.
Patrick, I have to ask you a question. Feel free to say no.
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, you can stay. You can spend the night until the end. I mean, even if he was there, your husband, you wouldn't make it home in time. It's past 11, and anyway, I want you to stay. I've been thinking about it, and it's not an imposition. And it's not like I want to have sex with you, but I do feel like I like you. We made a connection, and I want us to be together.
I want you to shoot me.
Oh, so that was the question.
So I think that's a great example of directing yourself. I think a lot of people are puzzled by how a director can move in and out. You know, are you sitting down and hopping behind the camera and then looking at yourself in the monitor? Talk to us a little bit about how that works.
It's funny. I was actually thinking the next scene that we were going to show, but this is, well, no. The thing is, Sorry, it wasn't the scene I was thinking of.
Oh,
showing.
okay.
I thought that I saw the next scene with me more, but this is a good scene.
Okay.
It's a good scene. Sorry. So,
Are you disconcerted?
No,
I
no,
thought
it's
that
all
was
right.
the scene that they got in their
it's okay,
phone
but
this
it's
morning.
different,
Okay.
slightly different, but
Okay.
than I thought. But yeah, I mean, this was the first time that I'd really directed myself in any large scale. In fact, at all on a film, and I was really scared about it. I'd worked on films enough that I'd developed a certain objectivity about my own appearance. When I would see edits of films that I was in, I would be able to say, "Oh, he's not very good there," or "Don't you have anything better?" And so I knew that I was past that initial stage of just, his voice is weird. I can't look at myself.
Right.
So, but still I was worried. So, I mean, the main thing I did was I empowered everyone around me. I talked to my assistant director and my cinematographer and my other actors, and I said, "You've got to tell me you've got to be open with me be honest about my performance, you know." In a certain way, though, what I learned was that being inside a scene is a great place to see it. You know, it's a great place for a director to be. It's a great vantage point. I really was able to see Sandra's amazing performance here, and she's amazing throughout the thing. And just being able to be in the scene and respond to her naturally. This scene requires a certain plot knowledge. There's some little revelations in there, but it's a really important scene where the two of us bond together, obviously. And I just felt that the best thing you can do if you're putting yourself in a movie is to get great actors to be opposite you. Later on, there's a scene where my character gets more emotional, and I still remember looking at her and finding it so easy and being so grateful for her to allow me to be emotional. And then going to the camera, it was funny. When you're directing yourself, the worst thing you can do is just sit, play back what you've just done. This was actually early in the playback world, where it took a long time to play back a scene you've done. But there's nothing worse, and nothing makes you more self-conscious than a whole crew watching you watch your close-up. You know, going, let's do it again. You know, it's really embarrassing. But not only embarrassing, it's a waste of time. And I think, you know, it's bad for an actor to look back at themselves. So I rarely looked back at my own. I would see the setup. I had a body double who actually learned the lines, so he was more than a body double, so he was able to act out the scenes. So I knew the shots, and I knew I was in the shot, and I knew I was there, and then I would very rarely look back at it. But later on, I remember there's a scene where I'm crying, and I looked back at it, and I tried it a couple of times, and I went to do it again, and I realized there's almost this schizophrenic thing developing here, where I'm in the motion during the shoot, and have this objectivity on the outside, and I said, let's do it again, and my AD, my assistant director, Jennifer Jonas, she came up to me and said, "Don, I think you're being a little hard on yourself. You've got it. You've got it there." And I went, "Oh, okay."
So some actors describe the sensation of looking at themselves on screen as like almost like a little black fuzz or something that they can't quite see. Are you
A black fuzz? You mean they're unable to look at themselves?
Or a black hole, or like just that they're.
No, like I say, and I don't know if this is healthy. It's probably a sign of some deep psychosis. But I am able to look at myself and say, and fairly objectively, almost like it's another performer, another person. I think it's partly through training, but I look at myself and think, why is he doing that? Or he's good there.
And you actually think he, not you.
Yeah, no, I do.
That's cool.
Yeah, I rarely say, look, his postures, I wish I could stand, or I'm going to lose weight or something like that. So, yeah, it's good. No, I mean, I wouldn't do it if I had to. I don't think I would direct myself as Richard III or something. Something that required a huge physical alteration. This character, I did the part partly because it was sort of based on my experience, my family. It was an exaggeration of certain aspects of myself.
And so are you calling action right from the chair? Are you sort of sitting there and just
Yeah.
staying where you are?
Yeah.
Huh.
Actually, sometimes I have my assistant director say action.
Okay.
Sometimes I do cut. I remember with Callum Rennie, I had a couple of times where I was like, cut, and he's like, Don, this is weird. This is really weird. You keep throwing me off when you're, and I said, oh, okay, I get someone else to do it.
To do it.
Yeah.
And do you designate one person to look at your performance and just keep an eye on?
I mean, I will look at an important scene. I will look if there's a complicated shot here. There wasn't. I mean, there was consciously simple shots there because the performance was so demanding for Sandra, not really for me. But I will always look at least once at what I expect is the best take to make sure it's technically correct, there's no errors, and it basically works.
Do you find that you're more modest with your own performances when you're directing them? Because like I noticed
Yes.
that you're on her
Yes.
when typically we might be on you for a line or a couple of the words of those lines, like I really like you, or
You're right. It's I think I'm more self-effacing, or it's almost an embarrassment to focus too much on myself, which is maybe a danger, I suppose. I'm not saying I'm a great guy, and I won't put amazing stuff in there if I do it, but I think you're right. So often editors have to say, no, this is good. Let's use it.
You didn't cover yourself.
Yeah.
Coverage for
there
everybody.
is that danger that when you're doing it, then it's like, no, I'm fine, that's good. It's like, no, Don, we've got to. Gotta get it right.
You got to give yourself a close-up.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are probably a lot of people who want to be writer, director, actors. Do you have any specific advice for them? Are there things that you would tell somebody about directing themselves?
Well, the main thing is, like I say, to really get a strong team that you trust. I'd worked with a lot of these people. My producer, too, Neve Fishman, came up to the set a lot when I had big scenes and things like that. I think it's very important to have people around that you trust. And obviously, it requires more preparation. I think the danger is you have to be prepared, but you still have to be open within a scene. I think the hard thing is still to be open, to be aware of my partner, and this is doing something different than I expected, and I'm going to have to change it. So it's hard. It does require a bit of a split personality. You have to be very prepared, but still think especially open from the inside.
Right. So are you turning your director brain off while you're acting, or is that also playing in your ear the whole time?
I guess it's sort of there. But I think there's a technical side to acting, of course, too. It's funny, I'm teaching some acting courses sometimes. And, acting on a set is always avoiding cameras, hitting marks, making sure you're facing this way, not that way. And so there is a sort of, hopefully, subliminal technical side that's sort of parallel to your performance. And I think that's what the directing side is. When I'm performing, when I'm acting in a scene, I'm directing, sort of a voice in my scene saying, now, stand up and look that way, now, it would be nice if you did something, like a performance. I think a lot of actors have that instinct anyway, but it just becomes more formal when you're directing. And sometimes you get ideas for shots when you're inside a scene. But like I say, sometimes when you're acting with someone, they're good, it's a real place of privilege, and you can see amazing things in the performances that maybe you can help develop. It's better view than most directors get behind the monitor at the other side of the stage. So.
Do you feel like you're as good an actor when you're acting for yourself as you do when you're acting for other directors?
Well, that's interesting. Sometimes. I think I have been. I mean, any actor wants a director. What I mean is, I really appreciate a director giving me notes and advice when I'm acting for someone else. And obviously I don't really get that with myself. But at certain times I have this kind of liberty by myself that can produce interesting results. But like you say, I don't think I would. But like I do it. I wouldn't direct myself in everything.
Right. What do people do now without answering machines? How do we write scenes without answering
It's a
machines?
major problem. That's such a great device, right?
Such a great device to let all information be known to everybody. Yeah. Well, Don McKellar, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you about this. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
It's great to see you.
Great to see
and,
you.
And can't wait to see the film again.
All right,
Thanks.
shall we watch? Is that the way it ends? That's not the way it ends.
That's the way it should end.
Okay.
We should end
Yeah,
every show
yeah.
that way, where we turn in our seats and then the film comes on.
To-
No.
Thank you.